Out of the blue, I think back to 35 years ago. Thinking of a person's average lifespan, I have over 23 years ahead of me. When I think of those around me with long lifespan, I have over 30 years. Yet something takes me back. I look in the mirror and remember the pretty girl of 21 with her glowing complexion. There is no trace of that now. I grew up during the changing times brought on by the War of 625 and its aftermath, aka the Korean War. Koreans call it the War of 625 in reference to the day June 25th, when the war started. My memory of when I was 8 years old is dim and fragmented. All I can recall of the place I grew up in was that there was a large stream running in front of the house, and a little further up the path was a dam where a river flowed. Next to the river was an airport. On the other hand, I have vivid memory of the time I fled south. The plan was to take the train partway and switch to a boat. When the boat ahead of us got shot down with all the occupants slaughtered, the adults turned around and got on the train. In the dark of night, grandfather woke us all up and said he and my uncle will be jumping off the train and that we are to toss our luggage out the window. My father had just tossed out some of our luggage when the train slowed and arrived at a station. As soon as the train stopped, police officers boarded. They went about inspecting something. Perhaps it was due to having tossed out our luggage that we passed the inspection. Later, according to my mother, we had disguised ourselves as seaweed tradesmen then. As the train started to move, grandfather and uncle boarded the train again with our luggage. We stopped at some station and exited the train. We then walked in the middle of the night following a guide. On Mom's back was third. Author refers to her younger sisters by order of birth. On Father's back was second, and I was tied around the waist to an older boy who was my fourth cousin from my mother's side of the family. My grandmother and grandfather carried the luggage. At one point of the trip, the guide told us to keep even our breathing quiet. When I saw where he was pointing, there was a blue light streaking across the road. It was a light reflected from a tiger's eyes. Even so, we crept past the road with our breath held. We stumbled and crawled, and finally arrived somewhere with wire netting. Even the guide was feeling his way as the night was so dark. Later I found out that we were at the 38th parallel line. The guide told us to be careful not to touch the wire lines as we stepped over. Just as we thought we had safely passed over, we heard a jingle, and suddenly there were gunshots. Someone yelled, "Run!" We ran without much thought. I couldn't say if I ran, rolled, or fell. Regardless, when someone shook me, I awoke to find my cousin whom I was tied to by the waist. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes," I answered. "We need to find the road. Follow me," he said. He seemed to feel for something. Then he climbed up and tied the belt to a tree and hoisted me up. As I looked around, I found there was no one else but me and my cousin. Finally, I asked him, "Where is everybody?" "We need to look for them." "How?" "There's a prearranged meeting spot." This cousin of mine was then 17 years old. Just then the sun rose. My cousin continued to feel his way forward. We arrived at a point where we could see houses with smoke rising in the distance. "Ah, I see houses," I yelled. Suddenly I heard my name being called, and the sound reverberated through the mountain.